Hello, I thought I'd do some kind of different video here. So just a guide of what tanks to kind of take for advances for people that don't really know. This will kind of include the buffs that are happening on the test server right now for the M5Y and, well, 60p nerf, Type 71. But yeah, we'll just get into it. The 121B is not really used in comp at all. If for some reason you don't have a 140 or 907, like it could maybe be used, but nah, I don't think so. Again, same with the 113. Like you could use it instead of a 277, or a 260, or maybe an i7, but just doesn't have the speed really. Um, so yeah, the 121B. Yeah, it's used sometimes. I've started to use it on fishermen's a bit more from north. Now. Just has a nice gun, good heat pen. It can run away to hide if you decide to split map. So definitely can be used. Other than that, I mean, again, if you don't have a 140 or 907, like it could be used, but probably not either. Light tank. If it's not an EBR or a Manticore, it's not used. It's pretty simple. Um, yeah. Um, WZ, it could be used. At some point when it got buffed, I can't remember when, probably a year ago now ish. Um, I know the team I was in previously to Clueless, we were trying it out instead of the Hori, just because it was faster. Um, and it is okay, but the accuracy is a bit worse. The shell travel time is worse. You have to fire heat instead of AP. It's okay, but yeah, you probably just want to Hori over it. 5A, again, could be used instead of a 277. I think I've seen Boyka or you probably won't know, but Rezis. Rezis, I think I've been experimenting with this tank. I've seen it used on Himmel and Cliff, which, like, again, it can be used. It has good DPM, decent enough speed, but yeah, it's almost like why not just use a 277, really. Just for that bit of extra speed, especially on like Cliff. But it could be used. It could be used for sure. 114 is just not used. The Hori is just better than it in basically every scenario. You don't really need a turret really most of the time. Finally, used a lot. BZ, it's basically, I mean, the meta right now on Cliff is like very heavy, with like 5 medium tanks and the rest BZs basically. It's like three CSs double tank to clip the hill or clip bowl, and the rest BZs normally. There's maybe a few i7s if you wanted it, but yeah, BZ is very good. It's used on most maps or can be used. Um, Especially with 60p being nerfed, this tank might get a bit more use as well, just because it does provide, it provides a lot of health, um, with good alpha, and has decent enough speed. It's the same speed. I think it's like 4 km/h slower than a 680p. I would need to check, but I can't remember. But yeah, I think this might get used a bit more after the nerf to the 60p. Yeah, the next BZ, BZ72. This is again can be used. It can be used on Himmel to be pushing things up the hill. It's starting to be used on Cliff now as well to just be faster to the ramp. So it is beginning to be used a bit more than when it was first introduced. When it first introduced, no one was using it, but now people are starting to use it a bit more, but for very specific roles. TVP is just not played. The only way you'd use it is on Cliff, but 50B is probably just better than it. Only way it's used on Cliff would be like to punish the hill, for the CS is going up the hill, but it's so fragile. It's just not worth it, I don't think. VZ, again, like, it could be used, but I'm just going to say not to play. You could use a single shot to be a 277 or as close to a 277 as you can get with less DPM. And the double shot is just not useful really anymore. Like, you could maybe use it for Cliff, but like, if you don't have anything else, then you can use a VZ55, I guess. If you don't have 260 IS7, 277, I'd rather take a 5A over it, or a 113 to be honest. EBR, used a lot. Obviously, this is played on basically every map that exists that's not Himmel or Ensk. Yeah, there's nothing really much more to say. 50B is used sometimes for basically Himmel, Cliff, and maybe some other maps. It can be used. Yeah, it is a decent tank. Just good at what it's meant to do, which is just clip things when they are going up or forced to go somewhere. Yeah, Bat Chat, again, it's used sometimes. It can be used on Himmel just to go hill. However, it does, obviously it can't clip out a CS, but it's still nice to have that burst damage on the hill if you're deciding to fight it. It's also used a bit on Cliff, though. If you use a Bat Chat, you are normally showing that you're going up the hill. So, yeah. I don't know which Foch is which. I'm just gonna say though, this is the Foch 155. This is not used. This is just trash. I don't really know. Don't need to explain more. The Foch B, obviously it's used sometimes for Cliff. Could maybe use it on other maps. I mean, some people use it on Live Oak South on the building to punish the under, but that's up to you if you want to use it. I just prefer a Sturv, to be honest. But yeah, it's sometimes used. 30B is just not used. The gun is trash, has no armor, just not very good. AMX, it could be used if you don't have 60 DP, or anything for like heavy. It could be used instead. Nothing really wrong with this tank. It's just worse than a 60 DP. And even after the nerfs, it will still be worse than a 60B just because the armor is a bit fragile with the the shoulders and the big cupola can even penetrate through its mantlet. So yeah, AMX again, it's just not played. Or just don't play it because EBR exists, and if you want an autoloader, take a Bat or a 50B. Mouse used sometimes. Probably at the front of this list. Probably not actually. Probably after. Actually, yeah. Like, it's basically used on Himmel and Ensk. Ensk doesn't get used anyway. Like, VKK is dominant on the map, so used on Himmel. Maybe some other maps, just like one of them to hold the flank, like maybe Live Oaks. You could use it for to hold something, to hold the city from either side. Grill, I mean, like, it could be used. It could. There is just better options than a grill. And if you're using a grill, you kind of something's gone wrong. But it could be used because it's really not that bad, other than it just has no armor, so it gets spotted, it dies, and it has abysmal camera rating. Like Cliff, it could be maybe helpful, like 750 alpha. With it was meant to be accurate, though it's not, but still okay. Again, RHM light tank. It's not an EBR, so what are you doing? Panzer 7, after it got buffed, it's like okay now, but I'm just gonna say don't play it. It's not that good. It'd only be used on a Himmel, if anywhere, and there are better options, I think, than its premium brother. KPZ, it can be used. Nothing really bad about it, really. There's just better options. It doesn't have amazing turret armor. The gun is a bit troll at times, but like it's okay. Yeah, like if you don't need the the armor, the player position, and maybe AKPZ is okay, but it's like still kind of meh. E100. I'm gonna put it into used a lot. I mean, I guess it's played sometimes because it's only used on Himmel and Ensk, and again, like some other maps sometimes where you need like a tank to hold something. But with it getting a buff, do I think it's going to be more played? No, I don't think so. Obviously, the speed just limits it, and it has a huge lower plate, so most of the time you're not shooting at its turret. So, like, yeah. Jaeger could be used. Again, Fisherman's comes to mind. Maybe Sand River. You could use it from the good side for K-line at the back, But yeah, you'd rather just probably have a Ho-Ri so it can actually move. But I'll probably put this in the don't play, to be honest. E50M, I'm just gonna put in the don't play. It's just not good, really. To be honest, like it's okay for randoms, but yeah, it's not great. Has really low DPM for a medium tank, so you'll just get out DPM'd by a CS that will just pen you every time because it's firing gold. So yeah, Leo, he's sometimes a Sturv is kind of just better than it, really most of the time. But you could use it on like Proco, Cliff, other maps, maybe Westfield as well. Like if you're playing South or K-Line, could be used. Still a decent tank. VKK, it's used sometimes. Yeah, it's starting to become the meta on Ensk. Really, I've seen a lot of teams taking VKKs. Himmel with the buffs to E100, I think people will be taking VKKs to counter the E100s that are being picked. And because the 60p is being nerfed, I think it will also be played more. I don't think it will overtake the 60p in usage, if that makes sense, but I think it will still be used. Obviously, because you need that gun depression in the 60p that it has. I think 60p has 8 and this has 7 over the side. And obviously, you don't want to be turning sideways to shoot over a ridgeline. Pichetto, it's trash. Don't play it. Nothing more to say. Rhino, again, same thing. Don't play it. Same with Carol. The DPM is just too low in all these tanks to play it. Lion, it could be used. That third shell is like the reload's not really that bad. But yeah, it's just a CS is probably just better than it, really, because it's just faster and it has more DPM. But if for some reason you're like forced to play a Lion, it's not terrible. Minotauro, it could be used, but very, very, very rarely would be used. It used to be used on Proco camps, but not anymore after they nerfed the Cabolas and stuff. So yeah, I mean it'd either probably be in the. I mean, let's just put in the don't play. STB, just don't play it. It's just not good. It needs stabs to work, so you're giving up either. Well, you're probably giving up a turbo, so you're not fast. Your armor is not good. You have 30 millimeters of side armor, so you get overmatched by like everything that hits you, even EBRs. If for some reason you're using it on the cliff, like it will just get bitch slapped by a BZ and it just gets overmatched. It gets out traded. On cliff, you're never really going to be able to use this DPM. So I just don't think it's very good. Type 5, again, it's just trash. Ho-Ri, I'm going to say put it in the used a lot. It's kind of being used on most maps now. You kind of have the choice of picking between a Sturv or a Ho-Ri. That's really your choices for TDs now. And yeah, it just has everything. It's a good gun. Mobility is decent enough. The ammo's good. Yeah, just a nice vehicle. Now, Type 71. My prediction for this tank is it could be used. Even with the buffs, like it might get used sometimes. From what I've played like one game in it, and that accuracy is very nice, and the upper plate armor is decent enough. I would need to check heat rounds against it. I mean, I think Tanks GG is updated now, so let's just have a quick look. Let's just check I have this the right one. Yeah, it was 40. So like using its gun depression, it is, you know, still decent, but like yeah, as you can kind of see, it's still 300. And like now you're aiming at this. Hatch is still open. It's 320. Let's compare it against. Let's put it against a 60 because that's probably what it's going to be facing, right? There it is. And fire heat. You know, that is good. You know, but that is using all your gun depression. Now you're kind of becoming probably where you are most of the time. Like, it's just not really amazing. It's okay, but I think the M5Y will be used more than it. But it's still not terrible. And like, if you need a tank to play on a ridgeline, definitely a good tank. Especially if they fire APCR, they're just like never penning you. Let's say an IS-7, right? Like it's just not penning you when it's hull down, and even when you give it like a good angle, still a 50% chance. So like, you know, it's okay. But like, yeah, I still think it won't really be used. I think it's just kind of meh at the moment. It's still, I think it'll be good for randoms, but advances and stuff, I don't think it will be used. 60p, even with the nerfs, I still think it will be used unless they go through with more nerfs to the speed. If they nerf the speed, then this tank might not be played. Like if it gets -4, this tank probably will not be really played that often anymore. But yeah, with the current nerfs, with just the gun accuracy and the reload nerf and the hit points, this will still be used. It still has like 2.9k hit points. Like, that's still a lot of health, and you have so much armor still. It will still be used more often than not. You might see it less on Himmels now, maybe. Um, instead of like you might pick a VKK instead of a 60p now, but you can still use 60p, and it's perfectly fine, I think. CS, it is just amazing. It is always used on not most maps, but a lot of maps. You know, obviously Cliff, Himmel, Live Oaks, Sand River, Highway, Westfield. You know, it just gets used a lot. So it's definitely worth getting. Yeah, Blitzkowitska could be used. Some people are taking it on Himmel, which is okay for it. I mean, you could take it on some other maps, but yeah, obviously you have to take it in a close fight to actually do anything. And most maps you are playing on, you don't really get that opportunity of just slapping someone for 800 at 50 meters. Sturv, put it in used a lot. I will. I'll put it in used a lot. I mean, it's used sometimes, I guess. There's not a lot of maps that it's getting used, but you know, there's still a decent amount of maps that the Sturv is being used. I wouldn't say as much as Ho-Ri. I still think Ho-Ri is used more than Sturv, but you know, for their procos, alleys, you know, things like this, Sturv is always going to be used. It is just you know, a beast at sniping. Kran, don't play it. It's okay, but like yeah, just fallen out of meta since they nerfed it, but well deserved. Hughes, same thing. Just don't play it. It's just it's a better version. It's a better version of an STB. so I'll put it in front of it. But yeah, it's still not great. Manticore, it's used sometimes, but not a lot. So yeah, obviously I would say an EBR is used 99% of the time, and then a Manticore is used about 1%, especially if you're camping for what God knows reason. Concept 5, don't play it, it's trash. Leo is just better than it. Yeah, not much more to say. Maybe some RLD members might talk to me about this, but cry. This thing is, I mean, it's just not good anymore. Same with this. Same with this. Yeah. St. Axe could be used on some places, but it's kind of just like, why not just take a heavy tank like an M5Y for example. Like there's not many reasons you should take it really, but it could be used instead of like a Leo or something. But yeah, I'd probably put it more and don't play, but for now I'll just keep it there. S-Conk, don't play it. There are just better options. The Chief is just better than it. The E5 is just better than it. Probably the M5Y is now with the buffs is probably even better than it. So I wouldn't play this tank anymore. Chief, use sometimes. I still think this tank is actually pretty good. Obviously the TPM sucks now, but the turret armor is still what you play it for, and it's reasonably mobile. I think it's the same as a Type 71 now. At forward speed, I would need to check. I mean, let's quickly check. Thanks, GG. Compare. Chiefy. There it is. Let's put an M5Y, I guess. And Type 71. I will not give it field mods because I think all of these don't get any big changes. But obviously, as you can see, it's using 120. Yeah. DPM of the M5Y kind of destroys this tank. Same with the Type 71. But the turret on the Chief is better. Obviously, the gun is worse. On the M5Y, it was slightly, but I mean, Chief gun is still pretty okay. It's not far off this though, so it's still not amazing. The gun stats are like pretty good, other than the turret reverse. Type 71 is actually pretty fucking good in this regard. But I still don't know about the Type 71, to be honest. The armor is too a bit iffy for me. Also, this thing gets 12 degrees of gun conversion, the same as the Type, but it doesn't get an annoying suspension. Yeah. Chief only gets 10, but the turret is kind of just indestructible. All have the same forward speed now. The reverse speed is very minorly different. I mean, the M5Y again, it kind of takes it, but it's not a lot by. Again, it has the weakest power ratio, but yeah, I think the M5Y will be used a bit more. Yeah, I mean, you're just playing it for the armor of the Chief. Really, that's the only reason you're playing it. All the same health as well. But I think it will be used sometimes. I mean, maybe with this new patch, it probably could be used instead of the M5Y, because I think the M5Y will probably be here. Spoiler alert. Badger, like, it's only used on Proco. Like, really. And maybe Westfield if you're, like, wanting to put a tank in the little, like, sniping position if you're playing, like, K-Line. I'll put it in that could be used because it's only used on, like, 2 maps. Sheridan, crap. Patton, it's crap. M5Y. I think it will be used sometimes. I don't think it will be used as much as 60TP still, unless they nerf it more. But like right now, I'm thinking like Muravanka, like Sand River. You might take like a few of them, just to have a bit more speed, than the 60p. But you know, you're still gonna be fighting 60ps, and you might run in just being out traded by them. But you know, if you can trade 2 for 1, still good. I mean, the 60B has more health, so you probably will lose the fight if you do that. But yeah, and if also you might bounce one of the 60B, which is definitely, definitely, definitely might happen. And your pen's not amazing, but I could see 2 or 3 being used on some maps. So yeah, T57 heavy could be used. Like you could use it on Himmel, and maybe some other maps where you can get like a close city fight. But yeah, I think it's very situational. E5, I think this is used a lot. I think with the nerfs to 60B, this tank will also be used more. Um, it is just a very good tank. It has very good DPM, decent enough speed. Armor's decent enough. Like the Cupola's not amazing, obviously, but like still nothing really to cry about. Really. Let us just M5Y compared to an E5. Right. Yeah. E5 has more DPM. Like it also has better heat rounds. You know, 340 heat pen is very fucking nice. Obviously, has a little less alpha. But you know, it makes up for that with the better DPM. Has more shells, which is very small. The gun handling is just better. Obviously, you don't have as much depression than the M5Y, but yeah, the forward speed is a bit less, 3, right? So like that's not amazing. Power to weight is a bit less, but I still think the E5 will definitely be used. But the M5Y might be used instead of M5 E5. Just so you don't have that huge cupola. Again, like a lot of people probably won't take an E5 on Muro and San River because it has that huge cupola, but the M5Y might be used because it doesn't have as big as a cupola. And it has, decent DPM. Yeah, so I still think this tank will be used in a lot of cases. E4, like it's only used on Ensk really and Himmel. So I'll put it in the use sometimes. E3 again, like it's only used on Himmel, but like it is good at its job. I mean, if for some reason you're camping, which I advise you don't, but if you are, like the E3 is also very good for that. M60, I mean, it should probably be just in don't play, but it could be used instead of like a Leo. If you need like a sniping tank, it has very good ammunition. Um, it's a very nice gun. Like, isn't awful. E6, like could be used. Like it's used on mines sometimes to shoot them going hill, but other than that, I'd like it's not it, you know. 260 used a lot. It is one of the best heavy tanks in the game. As much as some people don't like it for its gun, it has everything other than gun depression. It has everything. It has speed, armor, decent enough gun. Like nothing really wrong with a 260. T22 not used. It's just not great. Gun handling is awful. V5 it's not used. Like it's just don't play it. Like there's so many better options than it. LT it's not an EBR or a Manticore, so what's the point? Kennedy 1 it's used sometimes. I know when they buffed it a while ago, some people were experimenting with it instead of an STRV, and like it can work. But DPM is insane. It's just if you want it or not over an STRV. And personally, I think an STRV just has that bit more accuracy, but I prefer the STRV. And it's a bit more sneaky, I would say, as well. But yeah, the Kennedy 1 is still definitely can be used. Yeah. 75A, it's used sometimes. If you need something to side scrap off a corner, 75A. Himmel, Ensk, some other maps. I don't know, like some somewhere where it has a town fight like Live Oaks. We could probably use it as well. 430U, just not great in any area. It's quite average in all of them. The armor's decent enough, but like just have a 9 that has more speed. V4 could be used. Still an okay tank. It's just it doesn't really have the hit points anymore. Because the meta is so 60p heavy. The armor is annoying, but like good players will hit you, and you will die in like 3 shots basically. So like not great. 277. I'll put it in the could be used. Obviously, the 260 is better than it. But if you don't have a 260, you will be playing 277. 279. I'll say used a lot. I really like the 279 for comp. And maybe with a 60p nerfs, it might get used a bit more, but I still think it's very good. And the job it wants it to do, or you want it to do, of like angling up, and just being unpennable, like there is no other tank in the game that can do it. So yeah, ST2, just don't use it. It's trash. 780, I think it could be used. I'd really like to make this tank meta, honestly. Obviously, get some fire a lot on Hammer-Act, but the gun is so nice that I don't really know where you could use this tank, but it's still a decent enough tank where it could be used if you have, for some reason, you have nothing else. 452K, it's trash. I hate that tank. I don't think that's good at all. Could it be used? Maybe. It could be used on Himmel. I've seen some people use it on Himmel, but I'm going to put it on Do Not Play because I dislike that tank. I7, it is probably one of the best heavy tanks in the game, especially for comp. Just has speed, impenetrable turret. Gun is okay enough. I don't know. The gun seems to just work, even though it has like terrible accuracy and gun stats. But it's just a nice tank, and has a shit ton of health that you can use. And if players make mistakes, it's somewhat forgiving with its armor as well. 62A, trash. Don't play it. 268, I'm gonna say could be used sometimes. You could use it instead of a Ho-Ri, or the WZTD. It's just a nice tank. It has so much mobility that if the gun was a bit more, just good, it would actually be used. I think, instead of a Ho-Ri, like maybe with like the shell velocity skill, like this tank would be actually pretty good. And if you could improve the accuracy even more, it'd be very nice. But the Ho-Ri is just the king at the moment. IS4. I could say I'm gonna put it in could be used. It's in kind of between these two groups. I still think the IS4 is a good tank. And when they nerfed the Chief in 279, this tank was actually pretty good before people found out about the 60p. I do remember making strats with it because it is just quite nice. It has a lot of health. The gun has, well, the heat pen is good. Obviously the DPM is the same as the 279. So the gun, I mean, other than that, the gun is kind of trash. The speed is decent enough. Like it's still a good tank. But 60p is probably just better than it. But maybe you could use it on Himmel instead of a TP. Maybe if you're going for a lower side play, maybe because it's still quite annoying armor, especially against 60p's. If you angle it well, like it can bounce. 9.0. Use sometimes. Like this used to be before the 260 became more meta. The 9.0 was here, but now it's not. 320 alpha is just not great anymore, and the 260 kind of it has like 100 hit points more. The gun is arguably better. It has more alpha, and alpha damage right now is kind of king because as you can see, Ho-Ri, so yeah. So the 907, I would say, is used sometimes. Like Proco, you can use it. Some other maps where you can have like a pack of 3 and they can, go off by themselves and try and DPM something. Or, like, I mean, like, it was used a lot on Live Oaks for that building from south to shoot the under bit, but yeah, it's just not great anymore because the 260 is so meta. 140, it's just a 907, but slightly worse. Gun is obviously better than it, but it just doesn't have the armor, and the 907 is faster than it. So, yeah. For the British Heavy, I don't see it being used. The was a King, tin can, whatever the fuck it's called, can opener. I forgot something can. I would put it in a could be used section because, like, when it goes hold down and uses gun depression, I think it's like very, very, very good. But the speed is not amazing. The gun is not amazing. Like the double is just so it's just so inaccurate that it's just not worth doubling half the time unless you have that time to reload both shells. And I can't really think of where it could be used. Like maybe Sand River, maybe. Uh, when you're like south and you can just go K line, but that's just more because K line is just so broken from the east side. But maybe it could be used. But yeah, that's my list. That's the meta. These are the tanks you should be focusing on if you can, and these are the tanks that you should probably think about afterwards. If you obviously you can't get the BZ anymore, but the rest of them I would say you can get them. I mean the 268. I mean rethinking this, I'd probably put that there. But the rest of them I would definitely try and get. And afterwards, like these are just trash tanks really that I would not recommend getting. But if for some reason you have none of these, you can go into these tanks and see. But yeah, that's it. Let me know if you want like another video for randoms. I can do. I know I'm the advanced man, but I can do random. Thanks for the random queue, but yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.